All right.
Hey, LaDonna.
Hi.
Thanks for being here again. I guess I'll start off so we can just kind of let our audience know. So we are doing a second recording of LaDonna Carroll's story because somewhere between our software and our social media where there was an error and the live version of the story did not post or save or record. But the great thing is that, this is important to her. It's important to us that her voice be heard. And so myself and Uncle Sonny, we decided that let's record this. And so we're going to record the video and we're going to post it. And we sincerely hope that you guys engage and make your comments throughout the video and, engage and be active, because I think that every time that we post one of these stories, people come forward with things that they've been through, that they felt, my story wasn't as important, or I didn't really go through, things like Latoyia went through, or things of that nature. And I've said it once, I will say it again. All stories are important. Your story matters. So again, LaDonna, thank you for being here. And Uncle Sonny, thank you so much for your time and being such a good steward of these stories, to where you help me to understand the importance of what we're doing sometimes. And I appreciate that. Because, I be trying to do my own thing. I'm like, I'm tired. I don't want to do this today.
Yeah.
But we have a mission. We have a mission and a vision and an agenda. So we stay the course.
The one thing that you said, that everybody's story is their own.
Yeah.
And that is the truth. That's kind of the North Star that guides this. This is not about my story or your story being revisited, but every individual story matters. And so that's why this story resonates with me in a special way, because LaDonna's story, she and I were talking as we were preparing. Her story is emblematic of people whose voices are not heard. She was suffering in silence.
Yeah.
And there was no advocate. There was no one that was saying, hey, this should not be happening to LaDonna. Right. This is wrong. And so it caused her to internalize a lot of her struggles. So what we're going to do, we're going to give LaDonna's story a new bite at the apple.
Yeah.
So, LaDonna, welcome.
Thank you.
All right. So, if you would please, let's do this again. Introduce yourself. Tell us who you are.
Okay, so my name is LaDonna Carroll. I was born and raised in RTM Lake Charles. My parents were the late Nelson Carroll and Sister Donna Carroll. Most people knew me as the organist and keyboardist for Lake Charles RTM.
Okay. Good. So, and so you played the keyboard for how long?
I started on the organ in 2000, I believe, and that continued to 2015.
Okay, wow. So about 50 years.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, what I want you to do for us is first describe who you feel Donna Carroll is. Now, you use the word introvert in describing yourself. Tell us what that means to you, and how you feel you come about in this manner.
Okay, so for me, being an introvert, social settings have always given me anxiety. That's even in the church. In fact, when I started playing the organ for the church, I would actually hide behind the organ. I didn't want to be seen while I was on the organ, and I also dealt with stage fright. So I've always just been very reserved, or at least for as long as I can remember. In fact, any friend that I have present day was someone that befriended me because I will talk to you, speak to me, but as far as me going up to you and introducing myself and trying to create a connection on my own, yeah, it's very uncomfortable for me to do.
Okay. Your mom started trying to get you and your siblings involved in church, and introvert, or how you've responded to that. Explain that to us.
Yes. So I must have been around age of 12 at this point, and my mom and dad wanted my sister and I to join auxiliary. So they had us in the usher board, and they want us to be in the Lively Stones, the youth choir. I was too shy to sing, and I dealt with stage fright. So I sat on the sidelines and I just kind of listened to them. Kendall Leday actually noticed me sitting there, and he asked me, "Do you know the keys of the keyboard?" And I responded, "Yes." And so from that point on is how I became the organist. He took me under his wing and started teaching me how to play the songs at the church.
Okay, good. So Kendall was your teacher. He kind of introduced you to the keyboard, but you were already musically inclined because music was at home. Tell us about that.
Yes. So my dad was he played the bass, but he also had like a keyboard at home and, a whole, I guess, little studio that was built in the back of our home. And because he made his own original music, he taught me the keys because he wanted me to play the keyboard while he played the bass for his original music. I was also started in the band at FK White as a trumpet player in 6th grade. So I learned how to read music as well at a young age.
Okay.
So music was just in your heart.
Music is life for me. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good deal. Okay. So I want you to discuss for us about how you were taught to interact. You had problems, you had struggles. You were taught to get resolution by how?
So the way I was taught was that you seek counsel, spiritual counsel to be specific, regarding any issue or any direction you need, whether that's school, career, life choices in general, like seek spiritual counsel. And that is what I did with everything.
And who typically was your counsel?
My mom was. She's ordained handmaiden, and she's actually one of the designated counselors at the church. So she was mine.
So you had a built-in counselor.
Right, yes. And your mom. And you and your mom were very close?
Yes, my mom was like my best friend. That pretty was my only real friend growing up, was my mom. Beautiful. That's who I spoke to about everything.
Okay.
I'm curious, and I know this is kind of off topic, but the whole seek counsel about all of the decisions of your life and things of that nature, that is something that we've heard over and over again before with people telling their story. And it may not be, you may not remember like who taught you that or where that came from. Do you have any recollection of, because I know when you're sometimes born into things and you've been there all your life, it's just what you do. But do you ever have any recollection of where that comes from? Like who taught you to do that?
Honestly, I feel like it may have started at home. Just kind of how it was. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. As to home, let's deal with early childhood. One thing you mentioned about constantly wore a mask.
Yeah.
Tell us about your early childhood.
So early childhood was difficult. My dad was he was in and out the church. So when he was out the church, he has a crack addiction, and when he was on his on crack, he also did a lot of alcohol. So he became an alcoholic as well. On top of that, there was a lot of domestic violence going on. So the mask comes into play is that the way my dad kind of orchestrated the home was that what goes on in the house stays in the house. So we weren't supposed to be, talking about what was going on at home. So you put on, or I put on, like a mask. So when people would see me at school or in the church, I'm gonna have a smile. They're not gonna see me crying and my head down. I have this mask on. But it's just covering up everything that was kind of going on inside of me at the time.
Mm-hmm. You said that you always felt like running away from home.
Yes. Always wanting to escape, but not knowing, one, where I would go if I did run away. Fearing that if I did happen to get out the house, that my dad would find me. Mm-hmm. And then I also felt this responsibility that I need to be my mom's protector, in a sense. So I felt bad, even the idea of trying to leave, because I'm thinking, well, wait, my mom's going to still be in the house there, dealing with everything.
And was there a lot of domestic violence?
Yeah. So funny thing is, the most physical things that I saw was only like my dad, like grabbing my mom by like her face or her neck, or pushing her against the wall. I don't even know she knows this, that I know, but he was beating her to where it couldn't be seen. So there was an incident to where this is when my grandparents stayed next door to us in the terrace, and my grandfather was at work. And so my mom and my grandmother went into her bedroom and they closed the door behind them. I could hear them speaking, and I don't know if I heard them and made out what they said, or if I just understood that he was actually beating her in places that could be hidden under clothing. Oh, I don't even know if she knows that I knew that. So yeah, I never saw her with a black eye, but there was always the yelling, the slamming of doors. Everyone's walking on eggshells because we don't want to upset my dad, and then he goes off on my mom, or gets the belt and comes after me and my sister.
Was with the domestic violence and the things that you guys were living through, were these things that y'all were living through quietly, like no one knew about it? It was a secret. It was just something that you guys, knew amongst yourselves, or was there ever a time where it became public, like to the church, to leadership? Because like you just said, we talk about everything. I know growing up in RTM, anything that really happened in your house, the church knows about it, church leadership. And so I'm wondering, was this something that leadership ever knew about? Because we hear a lot of cases about the domestic violence being ignored there, how women are treated and things of that nature. So I'm just wondering, was that your case, your family's case, or was it just no one knew?
I can't say with certainty how much they knew and when. I know that a lot of time was spent with leadership by my mom and my dad at some point. It wasn't a secret though, because the family all knew for sure. I just don't know who all she was talking to about the domestic violence at that time. That's not what I recall.
If I recall, she was also really close to, I think, Sister Debbie and some of them. So
yes,
I'm just wondering, only because I think that when you're in leadership, you have a responsibility to, see something, say something, and get involved, especially when children are involved. So that's why I asked.
Yes.
So a couple of things. We want to. You said your mom was an example of Christian lifestyle.
Yes.
But you remember them being divorced a couple times.
Yes.
Can you?
So the exact periods when they were divorced and when they were separated are blurred for me because there were several separations. When domestic violence was high, my mom was trying to get away from it. She would take us sometimes in the middle of the night, me and my sister, and she'd take what we could get, and we would have a new apartment, or we'd be at one of the brothers or sister houses, family's houses, for the night. We're constantly changing schools, and that happened starting in second grade for me into my junior year. But yeah, she was the only, I guess, example that I saw what a Christian was supposed to be. I never heard her curse. She didn't drink. She didn't smoke. Like, she was esteemed highly at the church for her role. Like, she was who I looked up to, who I wanted to be.
Yeah,
And then,
yeah, I loved your mom.
Yeah.
Good. One of the things.
And you said, "Oh, what? I'm sorry, Cassandra. I didn't mean to interrupt. You guys moved around a lot, like y'all changed schools a lot. You stayed in women's shelter before. So those are all things that you experienced while being a part of the ministry.
Yes, that's correct.
What about counseling? Like, did the church ever say, hey, we need to maybe get some counsel with these kids and spend time with them because we know we are aware of what they are going through, what they're living in? Did they try to intervene and give you guys counseling, give your parents counseling? Do you know, and this is my other question, that's a two-part question, you may not know.
Okay.
Were the divorces and the separations because your mom wanted to leave but was advised otherwise? Because I know back then it wasn't like you're not divorced and you ain't supposed to do that. Do you know if that was the issue? You know, you're married, it's your husband, you got to work it out type thing, or you don't know?
So I don't know about that. What I do know about the counseling, though, is that whenever they were reconciling their marriage, on several occasions, my younger sister and I would hang out in the fellowship hall, and they would go into one of the pastor's house rooms. I'm not really sure whose, and they would receive counsel. But no, my sister and I, we never received counseling of any kind from the pastors.
Strange.
Yeah.
Because you guys are living through it just like everybody, you know, y'all are dealing with that too. It's a traumatic thing. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, honey. You can go ahead.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Okay. So you mentioned that, you know, because of all the things that you were that y'all were dealing with as a family, that you dealt with depression on different levels.
Yes.
From a young age. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I guess it's partly because I was starting to internalize a lot of everything. I was just so unhappy. And honestly, at that time, I guess we're getting close to around middle school. My only, what felt like escape, or the things that brought me joy, was music and basketball at the time. And so those were what I used to escape. That would give me a sense of, you know, I guess relief or happiness of some sort. Because in the house, it was miserable. It was actually unbearable.
Was your dad physical with you guys?
Yes, for sure with me.
You said that he whipped you so many times and you didn't know why.
Yeah. There was a instance where my mom was receiving accolades of how well behaved my younger sister and I were. And she said, yeah, they're good kids. And I know that I looked at her, and I want to say I even said we are, in shock, because honestly thought we were bad because of how many whippings we were getting from him.
My goodness.
How were you at that time when you recall that?
Had to be grade school, elementary, maybe.
Okay.
That's a lot.
You said that there was a time where your mom had to stay in a shelter. Did I get that right?
You did. Yeah. So actually, this is when everything just kind of clicked. So prior to this instance, I thought that my mom was to blame for how much we were moving around and the schools changing.
Mm-hmm.
And I came home from school, and she should have been home by this point. My dad's a disabled vet, so he doesn't work. He's home, and I'm looking for her, calling out to her, asking where's mom, and my grandmother and my uncle came over, and they pretty much informed me that she's at the women's shelter. And something at that point, it just literally a light bulb went off, and it's like, oh, so everything we're going through is not because of her.
Yeah.
It's because of my dad. And that's actually about the time that I was like, yeah, I gotta protect my mom.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned that you were at some point you were staying with Matthew King family. You spent time at our house.
I remember that, yeah.
But go ahead. So you were getting out of people, getting out to other homes. Was that like safety, or what was that like?
So what I can remember about being at the Matthew King's home with his family is I remember it being nighttime. So this had to be one of those instances where my mom snuck out the house at night with me and my sister, and she must have contacted them because they let us in. And I remember, I believe it was their daughter Heather and maybe another family member. I remember my mom must have been speaking to Brother Matthew King and his wife, because we were with Heather, and I guess that was a cousin or someone. And it was me and my younger sister that we were laying in bed between them. I remember them singing to us to help us go to sleep because we actually had to go to school the very next morning. And I can't remember how long we stayed there. I just remember that night particularly.
Okay. All right, let's move forward. You said that you got saved at the age of 12 at a revival.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I understood, I guess, the messages at a fairly young age, like my comprehension of what they were saying, and understanding that I didn't want to go to hell, and looking up to my mom, and I want to be like her. That's who I want to grow up to be. So there was this revival, and I remember taking notes, and I'm listening to everything that they're saying. They had an altar call. I went up, and that very night I actually got saved.
Yeah. Okay. So
how did you feel? How did you feel when you received the Holy Ghost? Like, what did you, in your mind as a 12-year-old girl, how did you feel? What did you think? Like, I remember what I felt, and I was 14. So
yeah.
as a 12-year-old, so I was 13 or 14. So I guess my question is, when you lived in certain situations, you have an idea of what receiving the Holy Ghost is going to do for you. So did you have any like preconceived ideas, or what did you like when you got the Holy Ghost? What was your mindset? Like, how did you feel? What did you think? Like,
I remember feeling very very light. I felt like a lot was lifted off of me that night. I remember thinking, okay, I can go ahead and die now so I can go straight to heaven, because I was ready to go at that point.
Same. Like, take me now. Take me now.
Yeah.
Now is a good time forward.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. There was I felt a peace over me, at least while I was at church that night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like something you don't want to ever leave or lose. Like you can just sit there in that moment forever.
Yes.
But then you go home and things change.
Reality still there.
Yeah.
So let's move forward to May 2007. You graduate from high school.
Yes. Graduated Sam Houston High, and I started college at McNeese that August. And I also walked onto the track team while I was there.
Okay.
So are you still like, I know you guys were kind of involved in Accelerates at that time. So were you already involved in ministry, or did that come were you already like deeply involved in ministry, or did that come later?
So at this point, I'm still playing the organ all through high school and into college. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you went to McNeese by choice? Was that your first choice, or was that kind of like a consolation prize?
Wasn't my first choice. I definitely was supposed to go to LSU, but my dad kind of bribed me. He said if I went to McNeese for my first year, that he would buy me my first car. Year passed, and I wound up just finishing out my collegiate years at McNeese.
Okay. Okay. But while at McNeese, you joined the Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Yeah. I actually that was the first for me because I had never been a part of that, even in middle school or high school. And so I guess because of the example that I was on campus, they actually made me like one of the leaders there while I was on at FCA. And while I was there, they wanted to start making like the FCA service, I guess, more structured in a way to where like we would open up with like a song. And so they created like a praise team in a sort.
Sure.
And they found out I could play the keys. And so I was their keyboardist. And we did our opening song before, the speaker comes up for that night.
Okay. At the same time, something you were, as you were playing with at the church, you experienced something where Brother Wendell had they were getting ready to do a CD or something.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So what was happening was they wanted to make a choir CD of original songs. And so different choir members, they submit their songs and, so it was for Lake Charles Church and I want to say the Houston location. So we all had a compilation of these original songs to play. And prior to this, adult choir rehearsals were pretty much Sister Latoyia on the piano, and there may be a drummer there. Like musicians, it wasn't mandated that we were to be there. So one particular night, while I was at FCA, I received a message saying that my presence was requested at the church. So when I got there, pretty much the new mandate was that musicians were now required to be present for this adult choir rehearsals. And we were going to start preparing for this choir CD recording.
Okay.
I'm still on the organ at this point. So just, secondary instrument, but.
Okay. So, but Sister Latoyia was sat down. Tell us about that.
Yes. So this was post-recording. Brother Wendell was also making some other changes. He wanted all of the songs sung to be sung and played just as a CD. So whoever that artist was on that CD, we need to sound just like them. He also instructed Sister Latoyia to discontinued playing bass notes on the piano when she played because that is the bass player's role.
Can you explain that a little bit to people, for people who are not musicians? Explain that a little bit.
So Sister Lede was a renowned musician, like in her own right. Like she was a true pianist. So I guess you can even say that true pianists are even ambidextrous to an extent. So whereas her left hand, she's holding whatever the bass line would be for whatever song the choir is singing. And in her right hand, she's holding the melody or the notes to the song that the choir is singing. So she's literally, she wouldn't need a bass player technically. You could have her a drummer and she can play the entire song on her own.
Mm-hmm.
So for her not being able to play the bass notes, I think for someone that is how she plays piano, like you're able to play the keys or the piano in a way where you're not running a bass line per se, and you're just playing in like a extension of a chord. I feel like I'm getting really musically technical right now. But
no, take your time. Extension of the chord. That's where
yes. Yeah. So technically, yes, you could do that, but that is not how she's ever played the piano. As long as I can remember, even attending the choir rehearsals as a little girl, she was playing the bass line with her left hand, melody with her right. And I'm, sitting on the stool next to her and she's teaching me how to play the bass line. Yeah. So, yeah.
Is that how you play?
And Sister Lede, let's just put this out there. This woman is a musician. She taught music in the school system. People knew her because of this was her profession. This was not just somebody like me who know how to play Mary Had a Little Lamb and perfected it. Like this woman, people knew her. She was well known and well respected in the music world. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So there was an issue with that.
Yes, it was. So at one of these choir rehearsals, honestly, I can't remember the full context of like what I guess sparked this open rebuke. But Brother Wendell, he was coming down on her very, very hard at this rehearsal in front of the entire choir and the entire band. And
his voice raised?
His voice was raised, yes.
Okay. You said that at some point she was ready to go to the restroom. She was trying to go to the restroom and he told her to sit down. No, someone else that was sitting there said that that's what happened.
It's possible. It's very possible.
I'm sorry. In the after show, someone present said that she was attempting to go to the restroom and he told her to sit down.
That sounds about right.
Sister,
so was this just a casual disagreement? Like we have disagreements within me and my Uncle Sonny have disagreements, but we have a level of respect for each other. But was this like someone going in on another person?
Yeah, this wasn't a casual disagreement. This was definitely Brother Wendell was going in on Sister Lede. It was actually very uncomfortable to witness, being that this was my first time ever seeing an open rebuke, if that's what you would call it. Yeah.
That's not what we would call that. That would be disrespectful. The scripture, when it said open rebuke is better than secret love, it's talking about open correction, not open humiliation. That is completely outside. That is not what the scripture is talking about in the Proverbs. But anyway, so we won't elaborate. So other than you're saying that he was animated, he was loud, he was disrespectful.
Yes.
He was not talking to her as someone that was old enough to be his mother.
No.
He was talking to her like she was, well, would you talk to your child that way?
Yes.
Very demeaning. Okay.
Yes.
So you see this, and then she sat down.
Yes.
Okay.
I
All
think
right.
this man has a problem with women. I believe that he hates women. He has a problem with women, especially strong
Absolutely.
women, women who are very confident with themselves, women who know who they are. He has a problem with women. I mean, his ministry shows that he doesn't value women at all.
Yeah, absolutely. 2010, in the spring of 2010, something happened to your hair. We want to move on through because we want to try to capture as much of your story as possible. In 2010, something happened to your hair. Let's hear about it.
Yes. So at this point, I'm still getting my hair relaxed. But I had kinky twists, basically in my head for several months. And so I needed it to be relaxed. So I sought out a professional beautician. Because of this said beautician, I sustained chemical burns throughout my entire head. And from that point on, I was no longer able to take relaxers and had to go natural, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay. But also in 2010, Brother Wendell had asked you to start. You leave your job. The church is going to pay you.
Yes. So at this point, I was working part-time at Finish Line while I was attending McNeese full-time.
Okay.
And I was still, I want to say I was still the organist at this point. But there was a fifth Saturday service that I was not able to attend because I couldn't take off from my job.
Mm-hmm.
And following that service that I missed and wasn't able to play, Brother Wendell asked me if I would be the keyboardist for the church. And I was like, yeah, sure, He said, okay. And he says, well, you're working? I said, yes, sir. He says, well, about how much are you making? So at this time, I'm only making just a tad bit over minimum wage. And so he says, okay, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to have the secretaries cut you a check every month for $400 so that you can quit your job at Finish Line and you can play for the church from that point on.
$400.
$400.
Okay. So you quit your job, but then you leave school.
Yes. 2011, December 2011, I graduated from McNeese. And that following Monday, I started at the bank as a teller while I was returning back to school for grad school for my MBA, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to juggle school, working for the church 6 days a week.
Yes.
For $400 a month.
Yes.
And then, because you're only getting $400 a month, you get another job, but you don't get a job in your career, in your schooling, because you're trying to be available for church. Go ahead.
Yes, that's correct. That is partly the reason why I took a job at the bank, because their hours would not take me away from Sunday services. And then their hours during the week would still allow me to make it to the rehearsals and the midweek service.
To your second job.
every week. Yeah. To my second job.
Okay. Okay. So your salary at the church did not go up. You were still making $100 a week.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I have a question? How is your interaction and your relationship at this time with Wendell? And so you're there frequently. I know you said that you talked about your hair. You getting the haircut, and how was that experience? Like having the chemical burns. I think that's important that we talk about those experiences that you had and those interactions that you have had with him. So I think this was before you started working at the bank, is that right? Or was it while you were working at the bank?
Oh yeah, this is a little further down.
2015.
This is after. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah. Okay. So you're working these few jobs, and then now you're starting to have problems with your health. You're working 2 jobs.
Yeah.
Go ahead. And school.
Yes. So the end of 2012, I'm full-time at this point at the bank. And so I have my own benefits, and I say, okay, I'm going to go get me a checkup. I don't think I've ever had an actual annual physical before. So I have my own insurance. I'm going to go get it done. And so the physician is like, well, are you experiencing any problems? I said, well, I have some fatigue and my body hurts, but I'm always busy. I work out, so it's probably nothing. He says, oh, okay, well, I'll run some tests and we'll see. And so the test results come back, and he says, you have lupus.
Oh, wow.
I said, are you sure? I said, are you sure? He says, yeah. He said, I'm going to send you to a specialist because I guess they were a little, I don't know, contradictory in a sense. And so it's like, okay, maybe he was wrong. But the specialist runs some more tests, and he says, no, you have lupus. And he starts me on Plaquenil at that point.
Okay. So now you have this sickness, this illness you're dealing with. You're still working at the bank.
Yes, still working at the bank.
And you're still working 6 days a week at the church.
Yes.
How's your health at this point?
So at this point, I really feel like once I started taking the Plaquenil that I started feeling worse. So much so that when I went to my checkup, he asked me, was I having any problems? And I said, well, I feel like I'm having like muscle spasms all over my body. And so he says, okay, yeah, we have to take you off of that medicine immediately. That is a side effect. And he put me on muscle relaxers that I would have to take during the day and at night.
Okay. And so your mom does what all Christians do. She called for the elders of the church.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
So one Sunday morning after the message, they had an altar call, and I remember her gathering all the pastors on the pulpit, and they prayed for my healing at that time.
Okay. So they prayed for you, and then they recognized that you needed probably more time to rest and needed to not be at church so much.
The leaders knew about my condition. Kedrick, the minister of music at the time, he was informed about my condition, but as far as time off to rest, no.
Okay. All right. So they showed no interest in looking out for your health and your well-being.
Expectation was still for me to be at church.
Latoyia frozen. She got a point.
Am I frozen still?
Okay, you now. Go ahead. We hear you now.
Okay. Did they provide you with any support, any resources? You're giving a lot to the church for $400. Did they say, hey, let us cook for you, let us give you this, let us help you, knowing the condition that you're in? Did they give you any type of support or resources?
No. Prayer.
prayer.
Yeah.
They did what James said. Be warmed and filled.
Right.
Okay. All right. So, but let's move forward because I want to get down to these last 2 years of your being there. May 2014, you quit your job at the bank because of this fast track program. Tell us.
Yes. So I went to a Black Heritage Festival career expo because I wound up having to drop out of grad school. Could not attain my MBA. So I was trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do to like financially sustain myself? Because at this point, I'm not making very much money at the bank, and I'm financially, I'm struggling, just even to really provide for myself. And so it was Mr. Duhan that I ran into, and he tells me about this P-Tech fast track program that they were starting that spring. Basically, it's a 2-year degree if you go to the P-Tech, but in order to do the fast track program, you had to have like all of the requisites, I suppose, so that you wouldn't have to take those classes to make this a 2-year degree. So because I had a bachelor's already and my GPA was high enough, I think it had to be like a B average or something, I was able to do this. So I presented this opportunity to Pastor Wilson, actually. And I told him about the opportunity, and we talked about it a little bit. And he said, he said he thought it was a good idea. So he agreed that if I could attain the funding, that it might be a good idea. I could do it. So
you still sought counsel for it. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. You sought counsel for it with Pastor Wilson. Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
The church did not offer any financial assistance, seeing how they were working you 6 days a week.
No.
Or they did?
No, they didn't.
Okay. All right. Okay. So someone, Kedrick, made changes was told to make changes to the rehearsal so that, and this is in 2015. Now you are now working, and you're getting off at 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, something like that.
Yeah. So what happened was, in order to go to the fast track program, I had to quit my job with the bank because I was in class from 7:30 to 4:30 Monday through Friday. So I took out just enough financial aid to basically pay my bills for those months that I would be in school. So once I finished those courses, I guess that was about August of 2014, I needed to find a job. So I believe it was like October or so, I got on at Lupus as a spa attendant part-time. That wasn't enough income. So I also got another job at UPS during their peak season, where I was working like, I think it was like 4:30 or 5 in the morning to about 9 a.m. So between those two jobs, the one from Lupus would start like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and I would close around 9 or so. So rehearsals started at 7. So because I'm still at work, the new mandate was that musicians rehearsal and choir rehearsals on Friday nights would not begin until I made it there from work.
At night, after you got off from work, with knowing that you have lupus, everything that you're trying to juggle. So you will work your shift, get off from work, and then have to go to church.
2 jobs.
30 minutes. So 30 minutes, just like 30-minute rehearsal, 20 minutes. Just a quick check in, check out.
No, the rehearsals were still about 2 hours. There was times not leaving till around midnight. Wow. And yes, I was still working 2 jobs. So I did have to be at that next job at 4:30 or 5 the next morning.
Insane. And how much are they paying you now?
$400.
Oh, they're still paying you $400.
Yes.
Yeah. And you've got to go to work at 4:30 a.m. after
Yes,
working,
ma'am.
being up all night, working two jobs, and they wait on you to have rehearsal, and then they go home and you go back to work.
Pretty much.
Okay.
This had to be hard on your body. Like I have autoimmune, so I know this had to be hard on your body.
Yes, at this point, my body, it seemed like it was just in a constant flare up.
Stress.
A lot of stress. So I'm not eating very much at this point. So I got very thin during this time.
Yeah. So it was it at this point that they went and said that to Wendell and said you had a bad spirit?
Yeah, sometime during this point, I'm not sure who or whom it was, but I was contacted by Brother Wendell, and he was pretty much rebuking me for a bad spirit. And I was like trying to explain that my continence at this rehearsal, it's not because of bad spirit. I'm just exhausted and I'm actually unwell. And I informed him, I'm working these two jobs and the rehearsals aren't starting until I get off from my second job. And around this time is when he tells me that he is the one who instructed Kedrick to start these rehearsals once I get off from work.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And he rebuking you for a bad spirit and never checking himself.
Yeah. Okay. So at this point, you've been working two jobs, your health is bad, or you're working three jobs because you're working at the church. And then at some point, you're trying to determine what to do as far as your new job at the plants within a couple of months. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so at this point, I'm just I'm putting in applications. I'm taking all of the operator pre-tests to get an interview with these plants. So I know that it's coming. It's just taking some time. At this point, I also have roommates staying with me at my grandfather's house.
Mm-hmm.
And so around this time, I remember I had conversation with them, letting them know that, in the coming months, I'll be starting at the plants. And basically, over the next course of these next few months, they would need to find steady employment and basically another place to stay, because the living situation was starting to become complicated in a way that would conflict with what the shift work schedule would be.
Your
like
rest.
there were yes, my rest. So I wasn't resting because the jobs I'm working at this time and still staying faithful to the ministry. But when I would get home, there would be unexpected visits from sisters from the church at night. And so, they're talking and everything. And so I'm not resting then. And also, trying to make sure that I maintain my grandfather's home. This is an older home. And so it was a lot on me and my best friend at the time, trying to keep up with the house duties, on our own. And we're both working and trying to, provide for ourselves at the same time. So this actually became another time that I received a call from Brother Wendell. It could have been on there because it's actually the exact same call, if I'm remembering correctly. But basically, someone told him that I was kicking out sisters from my house. And so what happened was that some of the girls, I guess, were in contact with like the pastor's wives. And then that made it to the pastor, which made it to Brother Wendell. Well, that no one was being kicked out. In fact, this is another issue that I sought counsel for, was just, how do we communicate, how to move forward in the house, or how to, I don't know, delegate certain duties in the house or whatever. So I'm constantly in communication with my mom. And so it was said to, like, okay, give them like a time span of a few months or so that they can find income and find a place to live, so no one was actually being kicked out. But it got to him that, I hear you're kicking out sisters from your house. And I was like, no, I'm not kicking out anyone. And so I proceeded to explain to him about, my plans to get on the plants soon. And I just needed them to go find income and a place to live, so that when I get on shift work, it wouldn't be such a conflict with my sleep schedule.
So they weren't working. Some of them weren't working.
Right.
They're just staying on you.
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying,
No, go ahead.
Go.
I'm sorry.
He's saying that, what are you doing kicking people out of your house?
Yes.
They're not working. They're not being considerate to your need to sleep. They're having fellowship because they don't have to work. They're just hanging out. And so you give them, after counsel, you give them guidance on, you're gonna have to find a place to stay.
Mm-hmm.
You won't be able to stay here like this, right?
Right.
And so Wendell calls to question, what are you doing in your house?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Completely.
Is the church paying for your house? Are they giving you some type of stipend to assist with these people that are living off of you?
No.
So what makes him think that he has the authority to come and tell you what to do in your house? Oh, he the bishop, apostle, whatever they calling him now. That's it. Got it.
All right. So this has got to be wearing on you. But so on top of this, your mom is discussing with you, not meaning any harm, but your mom is discussing with you about your hair.
Yes. So my mom has been vocal. She liked when my hair was relaxed, or she liked when I have the sew-ins and the braids. But my natural hair, when I would wear it out, she doesn't care for natural hair. And so we had a discussion. I was like, okay, well, should I get it cut into an actual style? Because at this point, it's just a very kinky fro, I guess. But I'm using product to make it look presentable. But it's just basically a very curly fro. Mm-hmm. And she said, yeah, that might work. So I began looking online for some styles of some sort. And when I found one that I liked, I was like, well, what do you think about this one? She said, yeah, that might work. And I was like, okay. So I got with one of the sisters in the church who was a licensed beautician who has done my hair at times past. And I asked if she could, cut my hair into this style. And I remember specifically saying, just make sure we don't taper my neck.
But
it was tapered.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. All right. So you go to church service, or I guess a Saturday at the service.
Yeah. So I believe it was a rehearsal on Saturday, because I believe at this point, this Saturdays are now this Sundays. Mm-hmm. So I arrived to the church for this rehearsal, and it must have been Brother Wendell's group that I was playing for. And I'm walking into the church, and Sister Fawn walks out. She actually sees my haircut, and she said, "Oh, your hair looks so cute." And I was like, thank you. And I proceed to go into the church, and I get situated on the organ. And Brother Wendell comes in, And he walks up to me and he asks me, did you cut your hair? Yes, sir. He proceeds to say, you look like a metrosexual. You look like a boy. By this point, I'm in tears. But I get through the rehearsal.
I'm gonna say the same thing I said on live. He's a complete idiot. That's my take on him. And he's a bully, and he bullies women.
He bullies women. Correct.
He is an idiot.
That's giving an idiot a bad name. Okay, because
That man is horrible.
Some idiots have some level of decency. First of all, you're not his daughter. You're not his wife. You're not related to him whatsoever. So he should not feel that he could take the liberties to say things like that to you. Okay.
And I think it probably, I'm sure you being, already introverted, it did something to you because you probably are already struggling and dealing with things yourself, trying to figure out your hair. And I know when I have a bad hair day, and it's hard for me. I talk to Uncle Sonny all the time about my forehead. I'd be like, "Oh, my hair look big," So when someone comes to you and give you this unsolicited, wrong input about what he thinks, I know that. Like, what did that do to you? I know you said you were in tears, but what did it do to you mentally? Like, from what I can see, it is something. It is a scar that you still carry around with you today.
Yeah. So all my life that I can remember, I've always been very subconscious about my appearance anyway. Even to the point dealing with, I guess you would say, body dysmorphia, feeling like my features just didn't look that of what a lot of the ladies at the church look like. I felt like I looked masculine already. My hands are too big, or I'm an athlete, so I felt like my arms were too big. So I was always very critical of how I looked anyway. So hearing him say that I looked like a boy just kind of made what I was already feeling about myself kind of true. Like, I guess I do look like a boy because he's telling me that I do.
And he's the apostle, so he would know. Right? Yeah.
So later, your mom comes by your house.
Mm-hmm. So leading up to this Sunday service, I was already vocal with my mom about wanting to take a break. I needed some time to just I guess attend service and not have to be at these rehearsals and things. And so I'm just like, I'm exhausted, Ma. There was a lot going on at home because my parents were going through a divorce. Then there's the stuff at the church. My body is, going haywire. So I'm physically exhausted in like any way possible. And so she's like, okay, so let's try to get through fifth Sunday service, and then we'll speak to someone about taking some time off afterwards. And I was like, okay. So I get through fifth Sunday, and then I thought it was actually a really good service. That following Tuesday, she shows up at my house and she says she needs to talk to me. And she proceeds to tell me that Brother Wendell is sitting me down. And I remember asking, like, because of my haircut? Yeah.
So he sat you down because of your haircut?
Yeah, that was later confirmed. He was trying to reach out to me because once I was set down, I didn't have to be at rehearsal, so I took that time to rest. I believe I went to that Sunday morning service. So he was reaching out to me, I guess, to check on me or something. I'm not sure. And he tells me that, that I guess he tried, or he didn't really want to sit me down, but basically him seeing, this is Brother Wendell.
Okay.
Him seeing me sitting on the keyboard, playing with that haircut, he just couldn't bear to see it.
He is so full of himself with his nasty self. He should have been sitting himself down. That's who he should have been sitting down.
So
that man is ridiculous.
Yeah. So before we go into the closing of this, we had several of your peers to confirm a lot of these incidents, and without your even knowing it, several of them had confronted him, making you cry, and then calling you names after you cried.
Yeah. Now that I was reminded of this instance, I guess my last interactions with him just overshadowed this, but it was a rehearsal, and I want to say I was learning or playing one of the original songs, and I don't know if I wasn't playing it good enough or what, but he starts like getting on me like really hard, and I cry again. And so while I'm crying, he's like, "Stop all that crying with your ugly self."
That is so vile. That is so vile. He's such an evil man. It's so vile. I mean, first of all, it's wrong for him to do it. Second, it's not true that he's doing it. But for him to even feel the freedom to attack you in that way, then one of the musicians, one of your co-musicians, said he confronted him later.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the after show, that's when it was shared to me by John Valley, actually, that he did, in fact, he witnessed this for himself, and he confronted him about, speaking to me that way. He said he was even briefly sat down because they got into it over it. He was sat down briefly because of it.
Yeah. That's just being a bully. That's him being a bully. That's all. In other words.
And he uses the pulpit to bully people. Yeah. Whether he's preaching across the pulpit at you, taking something that you love. Like he literally, I think your friend said it in the comments, that he took music, something that you loved, and used it as a weapon to control you and manipulate you. And that is awful. It is awful.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get on down to the end of this. Okay, so Kedrick comes to you 3 weeks later.
Yeah. So yeah, about 3 weeks had passed, and I receive a text message, basically telling me that Brother Wendell cleared me to play, and I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, when would you like me to, to start?" And so it was actually that night, if I could. I believe it must have been a Wednesday night, I suppose. Mm-hmm. So I obliged, but I was told that I would start receiving help because I had been asking for help, another keyboard player, someone to share this burden with, because in the absence of Kedrick being there at these services and these rehearsals, like that responsibility of everything running as planned was put on me. And so I was pretty much, delegating all the services and rehearsals based upon what I was being told to do in his absence.
So what was Kendrick?
I believe a lot of the time he was with Brother Wendell.
Oh, so they just dropped all the load on you while they gallivant around the country or up to the wilderness.
Guess so.
The Jim Jones place.
Okay. So, but then on November 9th, you started a job at the plant.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So at this point, I resumed playing. I'm still at the church, officially. And I just remember I played maybe it was one particular service, and I was just, I guess, just taking inventory of everything and was looking over my life, and I just remember, like, what have I chosen, like, for myself? And I started thinking about my education. I started thinking about my career. I started thinking about even how I'm put on this, quote, pedestal in the church as having this position, but I really I had no autonomy of my own, even at the church. And nothing was changed. I was told I was going to receive help. I was told that, the burden of the music ministry wouldn't just be on me when I returned to play, that, things would change. And I got back and I was playing it and nothing changed. And so I received the message. At this point, like you said, I've actually have started at the plant. So I received a message saying that Brother Wendell wanted me to play for the women's retreat.
Okay.
And it was at that point I was like, I'm done. So I text Kendrick back and I let him know. I said, no, I won't be able to play at the retreat, and I would not be returning to RTM.
Okay.
Good for you.
Yeah. But then, so you get a contact from Pastor Wilson. Now, no one has tried to help you up to this point, but then you get a contact from Pastor Wilson. What's that about?
Yes. So he reaches out to me, and he was inviting me to come, talk to him at the church. And so I agreed. And when I get there, he's pretty much trying to reconcile me back to ministry. And if I recall, he's saying not even trying to get you back just to have to go play, but just to get you back in ministry. And I remember him telling me that he heard what Brother Wendell had told me, and that he wanted to assure me that I'm a beautiful young woman and I do not look like a boy.
Now, after you're gone, he
Yes.
comes and affirms you. But the entire time you were going through all these things, he's not been there supporting you.
Not in that way, no.
In fact, none of them were there to support you. Okay. Anyway, in 2016, April, you started seeing a licensed counselor and therapist.
Yes. I needed to. I remember my friend that actually suggested that I go to therapy, and she told me that I should. I was very defensive about it because seeing a therapist outside the church it was not, you weren't supposed to be doing that. We're supposed to seek godly counsel,
Right.
So I'm very defensive, and because this is the way I've been taught. But I'm spiraling at this point, and I'm struggling, dealing with, trying to, I guess, process the things that I'm dealing with at the church and the family life. And so, I needed to see a therapist, and that's when I started.
Good for you. And I want to apologize for religion because the abuse that you experienced should not happen in a church environment. We have all come to terms that this really is not, in a normal sense, what a church is. This is a place where a bully resides, and his partners that go and hide and commit crimes as well. This is not the way a church is supposed to be. All of that you experienced there, I cannot put into words how embarrassed I am that that happened to you at a place that was supposed to be called a church. But we certainly appreciate your sharing your story, and we have a follow up. I don't know when we can do it because I'll be leaving town and turnaround's coming, but we have a follow up that we're going to be doing with some of your other musicians, and we'll see when we can get to that. But thank you for your time.
Absolutely. And I agree. Yeah, thank you for your time and sharing your story and going through this process again.
Yes.
And we know we may have missed some things. So, people who had the opportunity to see it live, of course, it was very raw, very uncut. And again, I know this is hard. So I appreciate you. We thank you so much for being here.
Okay.
And let me just say this. I'm sorry. One thing, because I did say this on the live. I'm gonna say this again. You are beautiful. Your spirit is so beautiful. You are beautiful inside and out. And anybody who can't see that and don't see that, shame on them.
It's part of the mental illness of church, of that church.
Yeah. Yeah.
That they can do that to you, to suppress you, to make you feel less than who you are, to control you. That is a sickness. That man will at some point pay for that crime. I know, and I started here, I'm going to end here. I know that your situation is not isolated, but it's emblematic of what he does, like Latoyia said, particularly to women. And the devastation cannot be overstated. But what I'm grateful for is that you're getting therapy, you're getting counseling, and you will be well. You'll be whole. And I thank you for allowing us to be a part of your journey.
Yeah. And also, I think I said this on the other live, is that, if you ever need anything, you can reach out to us. We are family. Leaving a place like RTM can be a very lonely place. You oftentimes lose family and friends. It can be very lonely. And so if ever you need anything, especially that I know you're in my neck of the woods, don't hesitate. Reach out to us. We are here. We have a community that we've built with Church Diaries, and we are a family. We get together every week mostly. And so within this community, there is support. And if you need anything, just let us know.
Yeah.
Let us know.
Okay. I will.
Okay. Get
For
some
real.
rest.
Get some.
I'm going to try.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Uncle Sonny. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.